Hello and welcome back to another video. This is a response to Tony Cruz, aka Electric Adventures, here on YouTube, and if you're not aware of his channel, I'll leave a link down below. Be sure to check it out. So for some unbeknown reason, he has managed to acquire 2 copies of Game Chasers Season 3. Now this is actually good news for people like me and you, because he has decided to give one of them away. So in order to qualify, all we have to do is make a video response of your top 5 favourite shoot 'em ups. Now I'm going to cop out a little bit, just like Tony did, and just offer you 5 shoot 'em ups from 5 different systems, because compiling a top 5 for me, which would change weekly, monthly, perhaps even daily, would be extremely time consuming and most difficult. So what I'm going to do is exactly what I said. So first up on the Nintendo Game Boy is Nemesis from Konami. Now this is actually a bit of a nostalgic classic to me, because I remember playing this in the playground. And even then I was immensely impressed with how they'd managed to fit such a complex title on a Nintendo handheld. Now, although it's not arcade perfect, it's sort of a game in its own right, it is worthy of adding to your collection. It's a fantastic shoot 'em up. It's a great way to spend a little bit of time, especially if you're on the travel. So with that being said, Nemesis on the Game Boy, perhaps the sequel's better, but nostalgically, this is where it's at for me. So next up we've got a guy Aris on the Mega Drive, a very interesting title. Perhaps the standout feature, besides the graphics, the level design, the sound and the huge sprites and screen filling enemies, is the actual power-up system. Now you obtain your powers from firing out an orb at the enemies, and you can also level them up and combine, which makes for some interesting gameplay. The only downside to this game is how incredibly difficult it is, but it is worth persevering with. There's a hell of a lot to like here, and it is possibly one of the best shoot 'em ups on the Sega Mega Drive. So moving on to the Mega CD, a system where the choice isn't that large when it comes to shoot 'em ups. We've got Robo Aleste. Now big shout out to Mr. Oreo for hooking me up with this. From the legendary Aleste series, perhaps not quite as memorable as Musa Aleste on the Mega Drive, but still a great game in its own right. In terms of vertically scrolling shoot 'em ups on the Mega CD, you won't find a better one. So moving on to the Sega Saturn, a system that is filled with quality shoot 'em ups, I've chosen Thunder Force 5. Now I didn't like this game to begin with. I wasn't keen on the polygonal look. I preferred the Mega Drive releases, I preferred the sort of chip sounds or the tunes, but with prolonged play, with time, this has become one of my favourite games. Absolutely adore this. The backgrounds, the power-ups, the soundtrack, it's just truly one of the greatest games on the Sega Saturn, and I would recommend this as my favourite shooter on the Sega Saturn, of course. So last but not least, moving on to the Dreamcast, a system that's got quite a large library of shoot 'em ups. I've chosen from the NG dev team Neo XYX, another vertically scrolling shoot 'em up. Something about this game, a bit of a guilty pleasure. I don't generally like to use loads of continues, but with this game it doesn't matter, because I'm enjoying the experience so much. The soundtrack, the way it plays, the enemies, everything about this game ticks all the right boxes for me, and I'll just play and continue right the way to the end, and then I'll just start all over again. So there we go. 5 games that you will definitely enjoy if you manage to acquire them. So with that being said, I'll thank you for watching. Make a video response to Tony if you wish to enter and win the Game Chasers Season 3. And from me, goodbye for now. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.